This is radically different from the economy we study in school. We went through a situation where central banks pump liquidity into the economy uh, via lower interest rates. And now we're living through the bust.
According to Carta, VC investment in tech companies has dropped 50% year over year. Closures by VC-backed tech startups is at multi-year highs. And returns on VC-backed companies is down to negative 7% this year.
I own my own company, MAPR Advisory, that specializes in debt, alternative lending, and M&A lifecycle. And I'm also a director in the healthcare restructuring practice at Gibbons Advisors, based in Nashville. And with them, I specialize in Chapter 11 turnarounds and strategic planning for healthcare companies. And before this, I was director at KPMG Strategy and started my career with Alex Partners.
Basically, companies are funding less companies with a lot more dollars, where you have a few AI startups that are getting paid so much, but most of tech is down. So there's a few pockets of really big winners, and those ones are the fastest drive to value. I want to read a post from John Rush. Shout out to John Rush. He's one of my favorite unpopular opinion guys on LinkedIn. We're talking about software, by the way. This guy's a software developer. 99% of VC-backed founders I know either shut down, scaled down, or operating at a loss and pivoted into optimizing for profit. Let's call him Peter. Alone launches 12 startups a year, while a team of 12 in a VC-backed startup spends 12 months to ship just one product. Indie makers ship straight to prod every day, while VC-backed startups need another 6 months for a new version release.
Capital raising, I do a lot more in the debt side, and I work typically with alternative lenders, not including distressed. And they actually focus on three major things: the balance sheet, the business plan, and the cash flow. Not the cash flow that starts with net income, but rather the cash flow that starts from the
Gas sounds. Yeah.
from the receipts in the disbursements.
And two types of major accounting that you do. There's cash basis accounting and accrual basis. In those two worlds, right? In the accrual world, you can go and recognize revenue as soon as it's earned. Doesn't mean the cash came in. It just means it was earned.
Right.
So if I am Joe's lawn mowing business and I mowed your lawn 10 times this summer, but you haven't paid me, I can recognize all that revenue. I can recognize that $1,000 you were supposed to pay me, but you actually never paid me yet. What Mateo was saying is that his alternative lenders are looking at the cash number. How many dollars are actually in? Did you collect from Joe's, or did you pay Joe's lawn mowing service, or do you still owe them debt? You know? And that's where you reconcile to a cash balance, because that cash balance is actually what you can draw from.
Yeah, and the balance sheet as well. I mean, which is, as I get interesting caveat or footnote rather, to say that just a tip, for alternative lending, the lenders are typically looking for companies that have unencumbered asset. So whenever companies are going through things, it's always good to have one asset, typically real estate, it could be machinery and so on, that is unencumbered, meaning there are no liens on that. It's just good to have as nearby.
So unencumbered asset meaning if I collateralize this iPad to make it up, right? And I said, hey, this iPad's worth $300. I go to Mateo's alternative lending bank. This iPad currently is unencumbered. It's not pledged to any debt facility. And so I can go to Mateo and say, hey, this thing's worth $300. Can I collateralize this and borrow $200 on it?
Yeah.
And he'll go, okay, yeah, sure. And he looks at the value of it. He makes an assessment. He goes, yep, this is worth $300. Sure. And he loans me the $200, right? And so now it becomes encumbered. So when he says an unencumbered asset, that's like the iPad at the beginning before I pledged it to a debt facility.
That's right.
So
it's good to have. I think people forget about that, and sometimes when they are going through situations in the company, they're like, well, I have all the things, I'll just do a huge loan with putting all this stuff in collateral. And actually, no, you should always have a piece of all of your assets that it's not pledged to anything. just in case. Because then sometimes, interesting thing here, if you do have to file a Chapter 11, which is a great tool to manage your debt and get out of things without that touching the owner. And there's, it's expensive too, that's for sure, because you have to pay the attorney, you have to pay me. And having an asset that is unencumbered, it allows you to have that liquidity to fund the first, that stage of the bankruptcy.
What's your advice to anyone who works at one of those tech companies that's not cash flow positive and is going to have trouble finding investors?
If you are a tech startup and you've been struggling and you haven't gotten any money from VCs and you've been around for more than 18 months, you're not going to get money from VCs. VCs are focused on extremely high and geometric growth rates, and that is based on perception, on the fact that the service or the good that you are providing is groundbreaking.
And what can we do on the back end to try to reduce some of the fees that someone will have to pay you for what you do, which is absolutely necessary?
This is the trap. Like, you're going to Chapter 11.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that can be automated that could make things cheaper for the operation in general, and especially in bankruptcy.
So one of the things you mentioned about alternative lending is that your alternative lenders want to see a business plan. And then they probably want to track that business plan.
Yeah. And the judge as well.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah. So this is used in multiple locations.
Yeah.
Building that business plan and then tracking it, right? That part, the tracking part, is the hard part. Automating any portion of that process, tracking the process, whether it's, managing your sales and what's in your sales pipeline, to just how are your reps performing, even workforce management, like how many people are we paying? How many people are on payroll? Are they all necessary? All that stuff, automation can come in and help you kind of cut things down efficiently. Let's just think about, like, if you're a tech company that's struggling to drive revenue. A lot of these tech companies their sales teams are run by an ex-VP or an ex-SVP of sales of another mid to larger company. And you'll find that their processes are wildly inefficient. Things like, why are you still cold calling one number at a time with parallel dialers, where you can call 5 companies at the same time? Automated email outreach campaigns, specified ads based on what your sales team is pushing to what leads, retargeting.
Yeah.
All that stuff is done from someone who's went from 0 to 100. And that's why they pay someone like myself to do automation, to make that possible for your reps, to track accurate data in the CRM for your reps. So they are supercharged. You don't want to be hiring 10 BDRs to do sales for your company when you could hire 3 and have them more powerful and more successful than the 10 you hired. So, long story short, if your company is not cash flow positive as a tech company, you have to try and get there as fast as possible, so you can build the balance sheet and the income statement required to go take out the debt to continue funding the cycle.
By providing a value experience.
Right.
It's like you can't
be a nice to have.
I think what's really important, especially when it comes to, like, for example, software companies, that solution that's super scalable, that, has all the bells and whistles built in, that's not going to be the first solution on the table. If you're in that world, you think about just getting things done 80% right, and then leave the 20% off. You're not going to be doing the nice to have projects anymore.
and you want something that that is going to pay off, that you haven't done for a while, that you have put off for a long time, well, that it's going to pay you handsomely to automate that, for sure.
Absolutely.